But people buying scientific books or medical books, they're not looking for something like really beautiful or something that captures their imagination from the cover of the book. They want a specific book that they all already know about, kind of thing. So I think it's much clearer that in science that the future really is electronic, and therefore our chapter on cybernephrology and its relationship to the Banff classification, most people will read that in electronic form. Therefore, they'll be able to access the video we're doing now, and life will be good, So anyway, that's kind of the way it goes. So, did you have other questions you wanted to ask me?
One of the main questions is, what would you say cybernephrology means to you?
So, it is two things. It's a general concept. It's an initiative of putting kidney medicine on the internet, providing educational content in kidney medicine on the internet in electronic form. And it's also something very personal, since I started cybernephrology in '97, and that was after 3 years where we had created various websites and email discussion groups. But it's an old-fashioned word. Most people don't use the prefix cyber. It's sort of not sexy anymore, really. It immediately marks you. You must have been alive in the 80s, man, if you use that word. So, yeah, it kind of marks you as somebody who knew about the time when we didn't have the internet, when there wasn't a World Wide Web. And so young people today who have never known a world like that, they wouldn't create a word by putting cyber on the front. They wouldn't think that would work particularly well. So I guess the other question is, in hundreds of years from now, will people still use the term? I don't think so. I think cybernephrology is probably pretty closely tied to what I did with it. So it was kind of an odd circumstance. There weren't a lot of candidates of physicians interested in internet-based communication. So when the National Kidney Foundation visioned this entity of NKF Cybernephrology, I sort of said to them, well, I'm already doing that. Why don't you let me lead it? And they just said, fine. And I think the reason they just said fine is they didn't have an idea of anybody else to do it, or even how to look. It's like, how do you find a person like that? So yeah. Anyway, that's kind of what it is. But then what evolved from it? Something very beneficial to young people. You would say when you lose funding, that's always bad, but I don't think so. So, we were very well funded for 10 years. It was a spectacularly beneficial investment for the National Kidney Foundation during that period. It was the period when the Banff classification was sort of growing and things, and that provided the major funding. And then in 2007, when the funding stopped, it meant that we started to employ a lot of young people, because the only way to keep the enterprise going, as the NKF wished us to, was to get students to do all the jobs that highly paid professionals had been doing previously. And so in the long run, I think that's turned out very well. It's given a sort of vibrancy, a freshness to this that wouldn't exist if the same people I employed back in '97 were still doing the work now. It'd sort of be old and tired. Oh my goodness, look at that. It's got a lot of youthful faces now, so yeah.
So cybernephrology would be kind of a personal to you in both the initiative and the fact that it's kind of encapsulated in this room.
Yes. So we were in another room down the hall that's now a part of the dialysis unit, and as the dialysis unit grew, we were identified as people who had claims to new space because we were in the path of a speeding train. That's what we were told. And people in the path of a speeding train have rights, and so you could claim new space. So that's when we moved in here, when we lost that space down the hall. And it was really cool at that time. A lot of things that seem mundane now were so exciting then, like running, the internet wiring in the walls and the ceilings and so on. If you do that now, you're like, boy, is that ever boring. But back then it was like really exciting. And unfortunately, we got a bit too much of the wire. I have reels and reels of internet cabling still that we don't need. But yeah, so we were beginning around the time that humanity really became aware of the internet, the World Wide Web. There was tremendous resistance in the beginning, as there always is to new things, but then finally everybody came on board, and it was really exciting to be at the forefront of something. And we've kind of stayed to a certain extent in the technology forefront since then. And so that's how I came to run a course on technology and the future of medicine. Yeah, so that's kind of how that went.
Yeah. So there's also a lot of, I guess, educational value to this environment because you employ so many younger students and kind of mentor them through their time in this research.
Yeah, and I think it isn't just me and them. There's a whole cascade of students mentoring other students and interaction between the medical trainees, the physicians coming here to learn kidney pathology from me, and then the undergraduate students. So there's a lot of interaction between them. So I think the beneficial mentoring, like Tori Sheldon, the student who gave me the plant back in 2008, she mentored Akshatha Raghavir, Preeti Cuddicat. So there are people still working with me. Aditi Raghavir is Akshatha's sister. So that's kind of a direct lineage going back to Tori Sheldon, and a lot of them have taught each other these skills. So it's not like, let's go see Dr. Solez. No, I mean, sometimes they have to do that, but many times it's sort of teach each other.
Yeah.
And it's kind of empowering that in this room we're all equals. They don't have to compose a specific thing to say to me. If they want to talk to me, they just talk, It's like these just two normal human beings talking at a kind of co-equal level. It's kind of funny about the names. Approximately half of the students end up calling me Kim. The other half call me Dr. Solez. And you would think that it's based entirely on whether they're going into medicine and want me to write a letter of recommendation, in which case they call me Dr. Solez, or they get some other path. But it's not exactly like that. Some of it has to do with their own persona, and some of them are kind of quite aware of this, and they reach a point where they realize they can start calling me Kim. And then the other students say, "You called him Kim." "Yeah, I did." But the reason that even comes up is that the interactions are not rigid, stilted, stereotyped, right? So it's not, "I don't know, we're gonna talk to this old guy, man. You're gonna use some old guy words now, and I gotta make it different." So it isn't like that, and yeah, I find it a lot of fun, and I think young people also do. So.